Welcome to episode 42 of the Just Happy to Be Here podcast. It's me, Tanner, and as always, I am just happy to be here. Truly, I am just happy to be here. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Taylor and I know that when it comes to listening to podcasts, you have endless options to choose from, and you're here with us right now, so thank you. And if you are listening to us on Apple Podcast, make sure that you give us a review. We certainly would not be mad about a 5-star review. Really, it doesn't take that much time. And I know you have a plethora of time on your hands. So if you would, just leave a review. That would be great. Anyways, on today's episode, Taylor and I, we get lost in space as we discuss a few things that are out of this world. You'll see what we mean. Also, we talk about skunks. Plus, we answer a question submitted by a listener. So with that, here is episode 42 of the Just Happy to Be Here podcast. And we have liftoff.
Already. How apt. How appropriate.
Apt. Welcome to the space-themed podcast. The Just Happy to Be Here podcast takes on space today, or so we almost do, and we'll get more to that later. But before we really go above our heads, Taylor, are you just happy to be here?
Man, I'm just happy to be here. You could throw a hashtag in front of that JHTBH if you want to. I really am. Are you JHTBHing today?
I am very much so. I really am just happy to be here. It has been a good day. Mm-hmm. It's been a long day. I was on 4 different Zoom calls with a couple of middle school classes.
It's a big day.
I had a blast. It was fun sharing poetry and talking about poetry with students. It's almost National Poetry Month. Shout out to April.
Hey.
Isn't that always weird when people are like shouting out to things that can't even shout back? Like the month of April.
Can't even receive the shout back or the shout out, whatever that thing is called. The old shout back. Hashtag shout back. Let's get it trending on Twitter.
Let's do it. Because there's nothing better than to have something trending on Twitter.
Yeah, that's true.
Taylor, today is March 4th.
Sure is.
And anytime I think about March 4th, I always think like, oh, this day is something. Like this is a very important, a very big day, a day where there's going to be a lot of things trending on Twitter. But
I can feel that.
But I realized that it's not March 4th, it is May 4th.
Oh, yeah.
People will say, may the 4th be with you, may the Force be with you. It's a play on a little-known movie. It's called Star Wars. I don't know if you've heard of it. Starring a guy by the name of Chewbacca. But it's not. But when I think of March 4th, I think of like, we just need to keep moving forward, like March 4th.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I feel that. That resonates with me.
And after that really terrible Chewbacca comment, I think the only thing that we need to do is March 4th.
I honestly did not even know what you meant until you explained it just now.
Oh, well, let's just March 4th.
We're just going to March 4th.
We're going to, because we need to talk about things that are quite important to the entire world. Mm-hmm. What is today's national day? What are we celebrating today? And there's 3 things that I stumbled upon. There was about 5 or 6 things for National Day today, but I didn't want to talk about those things.
But there are 3 things.
And there are at least 3 things. The first one is today is National Grammar Day. How?
Kelsey Grammar Day? No, probably not that.
I believe it's Country Grammar, which is Nelly's first rap group.
Yes.
One of Nelly's rap groups. But today's National Grammar Day, and I'm not necessarily sure how to celebrate that. But I feel like, as you and I are both writers, I feel like every day we are celebrating and lamenting the fact that grammar is a real thing and it's important. Mm-hmm. Would you consider yourself a grammar Nazi?
I feel like maybe I don't want to describe myself with the word Nazi in any context.
I would suggest that you not. I would suggest you not.
No.
I would suggest, in fact, that you march forth away from that.
I'm going to. No, but in terms of, in all seriousness here, though, no, I mean, I notice stuff, but I try not to just let it, because I feel like a grammar Nazi, just like they can't think about anything else once they've seen a mistake.
And they're just searching for mistakes. They're not even reading it.
Right. That is what they're doing. They're not enjoying anything. They're not drinking in whatever they're reading. It's more like, look at that. Yep. Look at that comma usage.
Yeah, how terrible. That's not how you use a dash. I will admit, as a writer, I am very confused with grammar, which is probably why my last book, As You Go, it was all just like no punctuation in the words. It was just filled, and that's, well, I'm an artist, Taylor. But let's move on. Let's march forth. It's also, and I'm excited about this day, and I wish that I was truly celebrating it. It is National Pound Cake Day. Now, I've never been like, when someone's like, we're having pound cake, and they've been like, this is going to be the best cake I've ever had. But every time I've had pound cake, I'm like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
I should have another piece.
Yeah, to me, pound cake is like the best of cakes, because I prefer brownies. I would prefer that cake be brownies. And pound cake, at least texturally, is probably the closest cake to brownies. And so, me and pound cake get along just fine.
I think that's great. I think one of my favorite things about pound cake is when it's both dense and light at the same time.
That's true.
It somehow does this thing, and I just always feel like there's not enough and too much butter in the cake.
I hear that.
And I'm okay with it. We recently had chocolate cake, and Taylor, I love chocolate cake.
Yeah.
I love all kinds of cake. You know what we need to do on this podcast? No one's asking for it, but we should do it.
Draft
we need to have a cake draft. We really do.
Yes.
All the kinds of cake. From Twinkies to pound cake and everything in between and over. Let's march forth. The last thing that you and I are allowed to celebrate today. And I feel like about half of our listeners are allowed to celebrate today as well. Today is National Suns Day.
Hey. Phoenix
not
Suns.
S-U-N-S. Oh, I like that basketball reference so much.
Yes.
And I like how you took us right to space. It's National S-O-N-S Day.
Oh.
So
I'm one of
you
those.
You and I are celebrating with our homeboy Jesus. Taylor, happy National Suns Day. What's one of your favorite parts about being a son?
Man.
What a terrible question that is, by the way.
Favorite parts of being a son? I'm thankful. I'll throw it this way. I'm thankful to have two really good parents. Is that that's I do. I am thankful for that. My parents are great. That's probably it. Is that sweet enough?
It's very sweet. That's like pound cake sweet, and I would agree with it. I agree that your parents are very sweet and very very kind and gracious people.
Well,
mine are too.
Yeah.
Shout out to our parents who can shout us back out. Taylor, we really got to keep marching forward.
Yeah.
March forth. It happened. In our last episode, we made a mistake. And I'm sure we've made plenty of mistakes in the past.
No, we've been absolutely perfect. This would be the first.
Okay, I would actually agree with that. I would agree with that too. We talked last week about goats in tennis. Not like the animal, but like the greatest of all time in the sport of tennis.
Yeah.
And you broke it down for us. And who were your top 3 tennis players that we were talking about? Because you can pronounce their names, and I certainly cannot.
So you're looking at least per our conversation last week, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Novak Djokovic.
Yes. And longtime listener, longtime friend of the podcast, Holly, sent in an email to writtentospeak@gmail.com, which is where you can send emails if you have a question for us, or you also want to bring March forth an air that we may or may not have made. You can send that to writtentospeak@gmail.com, just like Holly did, and she mentioned how we failed to give any respect to the great Serena Williams. Now, I am actually going to put all the blame on you, Taylor. because I do not know much about tennis.
Sure.
And that if there was to be a tennis expert or a tennis pro on this podcast, his name would start with T, but it wouldn't be Tanner. It would be Taylor. So now I think that the list that I was looking at was a list of male athletes.
Yes.
And we don't need to get into that discussion. So we're not going that far. But
right.
I do think that we need to give some credit to Serena Williams, who I would guess is a listener of the Just Happy to Be Here podcast.
I would say
Serena
almost definitely is a listener.
Yeah. I would
Serena, thanks for listening.
Big money on the fact that she's listening to this podcast along with Roger, Rafael, and Djokovic.
Yes, so close.
Did I say it right?
Yeah, there's a
Djokovic.
There it is. Yeah,
it's tough. As a longtime NBA fan, there are a large number of European athletes now in the league.
Yeah.
And so I am working very hard to say names like Nikola Jokic, Nikola Vucevic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and it is just your mouth's doing a lot of work, and there are times where I feel like I'm being rude because I cannot pronounce their names, and I feel terrible about it, which is why I don't host a basketball podcast.
Yes.
Yet.
And look out.
And the Just Happy to Be Here podcast, I'm telling you this right now, friends, it's not going to become a sports podcast, because today we're going to the moon. We're going to outer space.
And while the Just Happy to Be Here podcast might not be an NBA or sports podcast for that matter, I would say, Tanner, in terms of you going the basketball route, some might say that this could be a launching pad for that eventually.
A launching pad. I think you are correct. If someone would be counting down from a booth 3, 2, 1 and waiting for there to be liftoff. Earlier today, Taylor and I were texting, and I said, "Hey, what's something that we want to talk about on the podcast?" And in a couple of episodes ago, we had mentioned how we wanted to draft movies that were set in outer space.
Yeah, we did.
We
said that.
movies like Apollo 13, maybe even a Star Wars. I don't know, Interstellar, something like that. And so we had plans to lift off today to have a draft about which movies were set in space. And then I Googled in preparation, because you have to Google things if you want to be well prepared.
Absolutely.
A list of movies in space. And the number of movies that I had actually seen was perhaps 2. And I said, I am not prepared for this draft. So I had to shamefully and regretfully respond to Taylor and say, I just cannot. I cannot do this. You would absolutely destroy me, and he's going to destroy me in the regular draft anyways. But I at least wanted it to be competitive. And this would not have been. So our space-themed podcast is going to have to wait. However, I feel like it's going to be a part 2, because this feels very much so like a part 1.
Yeah, I feel like there's been enough space talk for this to definitely qualify as a part 1.
And speaking of space talk, I don't know how we didn't lead off with this. This is some gigantic news. Earlier today,
this is big news. I can't believe you made it this long not talking about it, honestly.
Well, as many of you know, my favorite movie is Space Jam. And as many of you know, Space Jam 2 is coming out later this summer. And I'm excited about it. I'm not nervous at all. Like, I don't think that no matter if Space Jam 2 is good or if it's bad, like, it's not going to affect what is the great first Space Jam movie. But more photos were leaked today, starring LeBron James and the Toon Squad, and I'm excited. I think it's going to be a fun movie. I think that there's going to be some twists in it that we just don't see. And you know what? It's just a movie.
Yeah,
it is just a movie. And I'm getting my hopes up, but it is just a movie. And that ties in with our space theme today. But let's march forth, because I think that we need to talk about the thing that you Googled, which I've got a feeling, boy, do I have a feeling that it's going to tie right along with this space-themed podcast.
Boy, did I think you were going to launch into a Black Eyed Peas song for a second.
That's not going to happen. I don't think I could do that. Okay, if we were to rank or do a draft of songs that you do not want to have stuck in your head, I've got a feeling by the Black Eyed Peas would be in my top 5.
Yeah. That's pretty high for me too.
I've got a feeling I need to turn it off.
Yeah.
Like, that's really what it comes down to. Anyways.
Yes. And we do apologize to Black Eyed Peas. We know they're regular listeners. But getting right into what I Googled, Tanner, just keeping the theme alive, just really marching forth with the theme here. I Googled, and this is actually kind of an accident. I meant to Google, you know how you go to type in something into Google and you have one question in your mind and you're like, what time is it right now? That's what you're doing. But you type in what, and Google's like, what cookie is the biggest in the whole world? And you're like, yep, that's my question now. I had that experience with this question because I believe I was looking for a trailer when a new trailer for a movie was going to drop. Can't remember what the movie was because I never ended up actually searching for that. I typed in when will, and Google was like, when will the first person go to Mars? I was like, yeah. Yep.
That's it.
That's the one. And I clicked on it and realized I had already kind of known this, but I dug into it in more detail. And the answer, it's exciting that there's an answer to this question. But the answer is 2024-ish. And I say ish because SpaceX, Elon Musk, longtime listener, thanks for listening, Elon, owner of SpaceX and Tesla, he's just bent on going to Mars, and I'm thankful for that. I'm really pumped about that. I think we've talked about that probably last week. And the kind of the loose plan for SpaceX to get to Mars is that an unmanned supply mission will launch if conditions are favorable. Will launch in 2022. It'll take like 10 months to get out there, and then 2 years later, the first manned mission of all time to Mars will be hopefully happening in 2024. Again, if conditions, and like, it's crazy how perfect the conditions have to be for these launches. Has to be perfect here on Earth, has to be perfect like in space, which I imagine is hard to control.
Do we have eyes on space?
Who's got eyes?
Not all of it.
There's a lot of it.
Here it's pretty big.
So that's the ish. But that's exciting. I love space things. Although SpaceX kind of had a bummer today, Thursday, March 4th.
Yeah.
They were not able to March 4th on this particular. Everything looked so great. They launched their biggest rocket, and this presumably would be one of the ones they would send up in like the supply mission. And everything went great. They landed it, and it exploded. For those who don't know,
it is fascinating, and and quite wild to think that we're gonna get to Mars, or
Yeah.
that is part of the goal. I was listening to something somewhere, and it was really talking about, like, we can find out how to get to Mars, but it's going to be really difficult to get home from Mars.
Yeah.
Not like it's easy to get there, but like just like once you get there, like how do you refuel to come back?
Right.
How do you lift off from, and so there's just so many things that are involved in this, and it is way beyond myself. Commas, dashes, semicolons are also above me as well, but like even this, like, it's hard for my brain to really wrap around it.
Yeah.
And it's going to take some brilliant and brave people to make this happen, but hey, I'm all for it.
Yes.
If that's what they want to do, I will cheer it on, and I really hope for the best. But yeah, what Elon Musk is doing and his team over there, it's incredible.
It is.
I am blown away by how intelligent people are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. He's also now building a city in Texas called Starbase. So
I have not learned about that, but I need to Google that. That's going to be something that we talk about next week.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes. Oh, man. What did you Google, though, Tanner?
Speaking of intelligent people, I was having a conversation with my friends, and we were talking about skunks, and because there was a skunky smell, and we believe it was actually a skunk and not a drug.
Yes.
But have I told you? I'm going to tell you this story.
Yes.
One night while living in Texas, we had just finished up at a church service, a worship service, and I was driving home, and it was about 9:15 at night, and it was a beautiful, like, fall evening in Texas, and so I had the windows down and the music was up, and in Texas, oftentimes, at least where we were there, the medians were quite large and often overgrown. And so you can't, like, see if anything is in there, and there's always something in overgrown grass.
Yes,
and so
always.
I'm driving, and I'm getting all the green lights, and so it's like, this is great, I'll be home quite soon. And then all of a sudden, a skunk runs out in front of me.
Oh, gosh.
My windows are down. I hit the skunk.
Oh.
And the smell that this... First of all, I felt bad that I hit a skunk.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Like, I was just, it's an animal. It's a living thing. I felt bad. But the smell that this skunk gave off, it was almost as if somebody threw a bomb, like a gas bomb into my car.
Oh, jeez.
My eyeballs start just sweating with tears.
Ugh.
I'm hanging my head out the window, gagging, about to lose it on the side of the road, because this smell was just so overpowering.
Oh my goodness.
And I called my brother, who's a police officer, and I was like, "Hey man, so my car smells exactly like weed," because that's like the similar scent to a skunk.
Right.
And he goes, "If you get pulled over," he goes, "just explain to them what happened and let them search your car." And I never got pulled over, thankfully, but it was just like this smell was so overbearing, over skunking, and it was just, it was terrible. But anyways, I don't even know if I mentioned this before the story. We Googled, are there skunks in Florida? And I guess I probably should have mentioned that before I launched into my only skunk story. But we were just talking, I was like, hey, are there any skunks in Florida? And there are. Oh, there are 2 kinds of skunks in Florida.
What?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I feel like I just need to read this.
Yeah.
There are 2 species of skunk occur in Florida: the striped skunk and the eastern spotted skunk.
Wow.
So yeah, there are 2 skunks in Florida. So if anybody asks you, hey, how many species of skunks are in Florida, you can confidently say 2. Because a trusted voice from a podcast one time Googled it while talking with friends about Florida. So yeah, there are skunks in Florida.
Man.
For sure.
Wow.
Yeah, but I think the real question is, are there skunks in space? And I'm not too sure about that.
My best guess is, and this is back to Space Jam, probably only Pepe Le Pew. The
only Pepe Le Pew.
The one and only.
I think you're definitely correct on that. Taylor, we have a question of the week that was submitted.
Yeah.
Again, if you have a question, you can submit it to writtentospeak@gmail.com or just send it our way on any of our social channels. And this question, I'm excited about. I don't know if I have an answer for it just yet. I think I have about 7 answers. I'm going to try to boil it down. And I think this is a great question. It's what's your favorite part of your current life? What's your favorite part of your current life? Now, I guess this question is implying that I'm going to have another life. So, or I've had a previous life. And if that's the case, maybe that explains why I'm always tired. But, so Taylor, for you, what's your favorite part of your current life?
Yeah. This is a good question. I think this is a question that definitely helps practice thankfulness, which we could all use practice in. I know I certainly need practice in this, but I think firstly, I'm 6.5 months into marriage, and I really am enjoying life with my wife. And there's no such thing as perfection in this life, which keeps our kind of eyes focused on the hope of Christ, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. But I really, really do love life with my wife, and am thankful for her friendship. I'm thankful for just the wisdom and life experience that she shares with me, that I get to learn from. She's my favorite person to hang out with, favorite sounding board for anything that we're going through.
All right, you're going to have to wrap this up, because I thought, I could have sworn I was...
I'm sorry.
I understand.
I was waxing on. I was just really marching forth.
You were marching forth. You were marching forth. Marching forth right out of my life with those saying things like that. No, that's and I love that, because it's the same thing over here. Yeah. And I think, y'all have been married for 6.5 months, and Sarah and I have been married for a couple of years, but we've also been married during a pandemic. And you got married during a pandemic. Yes. And so to have the time where it's just the two of you, and in some ways it kind of felt like it's us against the world. And I know that you and your wife had that feeling as well for a little while, where it's like, hey, it's just us, and we're doing this, and you come out on the other side changed, and hopefully changed for the better, just like going to Mars and back.
Just like that.
Just like going to Mars and back.
Without any differences at all.
No differences. Just everything is very easy, and there's a lot of refilling stations along the way.
Just post it up.
No, that's post it up. Sorry, I kind of interrupted you with as you hurt my feelings.
I'm sorry.
No, we talked last week. We kind of asked the question, what's your morning routine look like? And I think for me, like that kind of that's my favorite part. Like I think of the day is just like this little morning routine that we have of walking Pancake and reading the Bible and drinking coffee.
Yeah.
But I would also say like my favorite part of my current life, like I'm saying this mostly so that you kind of feel bad about yourself for what you said about Mindy and not about me, is I really enjoyed doing this podcast and making time to laugh and talk and to catch up with an old friend, because I think you and I both live such weird and busy lives, as we're trying to go to Mars, but like it would be hard for us to catch up, but like we get to do this every week, a couple times a month, and it's it's hard to make time for people that you don't see face to face, and so I'm really thankful for this. Also, it's NBA season, and ain't nothing bad about that for me.
Ain't nothing, man. And I seriously am so thankful for this, which is just the most pathetic after the fact. But I am so thankful that we get to catch up this way, and that people get to listen in on whatever happens from week to week, and that we get to keep the friendship alive and thriving, and just happy to be hearing every week. It's
like
just
that.
A blast.
You know what? It's good stuff. Do you have any like joke answers for this? Like, what's your favorite part of your life currently? Because for me, I accidentally bought frozen chicken nuggets at the store, and it was an accident, no matter what anybody says. And I have since then bought it twice, but I absolutely love chicken nuggets, and in some ways, it's one of my favorite things, especially sauce that I get to dip the chicken nuggets in. Now we're just getting out of control here. But do you have out of this world? March 4th. But do you have a joke answer for this question as well?
The small carton of Reese's Pieces Easter eggs that I just had from my amazing in-laws, that ranks pretty high.
You know, I think our eating habits are comparable to that of a 12-year-old. and I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
I am okay with that because after all, Taylor, I'm just happy to be here.
TBH.
And I don't know, based off our eating habits, how much longer I'll be able to say that. But for now, I am just happy to be here.
That's right.
Hey, in the words of Space Jam, get ready to jam, because in the upcoming episodes, I think we have a couple of things that we are going to be drafting.
Yes.
We're going to be drafting space movies, and then also we're going to be drafting what should you put on a piece of toast. And that is something that I'm going to lose sleep over, for sure. I will certainly lose sleep over. Taylor, this was a lot of fun.
Yes.
If anybody has a question, or you want to tell us what you've recently Googled, or you want us to discuss something on the podcast, please send your messages to writtentospeak@gmail.com. We love getting messages from you all.
Yes.
Or you can always say hello to us on the social medias. We wouldn't hate that, and we probably would respond. We'd probably respond quite quickly.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, for sure. Anyways, Taylor, thanks so much for hanging out. This was fun.
Man, JHTBH, and I would also add, for this episode only, come on and slam. And welcome.
Come on and slam.
Welcome to the jam.
We're going to Mars. All right. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, man. Talk to you later.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Just Happy to Be Here podcast. If you have a question that you would like for us to answer, or you want to share something that you've recently Googled, you can send us a message to writtentospeak@gmail.com, or send us a message on one of our social channels. Make sure you check out the show notes before you go. And as always, I want to give a special thank you to my patrons for making this podcast possible. If you would like to support this podcast and the mission of Written to Speak, you can visit patreon.com/written to speak, or visit the Patreon tab at writtentospeak.com. And while you're at writtentospeak.com, you can use the checkout code podcast20 to get 20% off of your order. Again, that's podcast20 to get 20% off your order. Okay, that's it. We're done. You have things to go do today. Go do them. I hope that you have a fantastic day, week, month. And as always, we are just happy to be here, and we hope you are as well. Peace. Thank you so much for watching my YouTube video. Make sure that you subscribe. I think there's a button right below me. So just click on that, subscribe, and then go find something else on the internet. It's a really big place. You can find videos of cats and dogs, horses, a lot of animals. There's a lot of animal videos on the website, actually on this website on YouTube. So just check it out. Or you can watch more of my poetry videos or any other videos that I have. So like, subscribe, do all those things, and I will see you next time.